So I watched me against my better judgment, Pinecreek. Yeah, Pinecreek. Interviews Gary Habermas. Dun 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 dun. Yeah, Gary Habermas, the minimal facts guy himself. Can Christianity even survive the encounter? I don't know. It was up in the air. It was intense. Now, how it came to my attention is some people in a chat I'm part of, Christians, came in complaining. Pinecreek is cutting him off. He's being rude. He's not letting him answer the questions. He's only doing setups for answers that he already knows. In other words, Pinecreek was being too Pinecreeky. So I decided against my better judgment to investigate. Now, I used to watch a lot more Pinecreek videos. I haven't watched them as much of late. He did a thing with Notes from Autumn that I thought was really interesting. A couple of things here and there. He did a thing with Rebecca. Rebecca did a thing with you. It wasn't all that Pinecreeky as far as Pinecreek goes. It was relatively fair, relatively benign. Now, if you don't know Gary Habermas, his main claim to fame that Pinecreek was most concerned with was called the minimal facts argument for Christianity. So I'm not all that familiar with it. And to put my cards on the table, I don't think it's such a great form of apologetic to start with the resurrection. But the gist of it is there are 6 facts, minimal facts, that even most skeptics agree to. Now, some of these things I don't think, I wish maybe, I didn't watch the first hour, I only watched the interview, so maybe Pinecreek did make it clear. I'm not entirely certain, and I apologize if you know, I was going to ask you in private. Some of these facts I'm pretty sure are under dispute by a pretty big cross section of the atheist community. So the one is Jesus was crucified. There are number 2 was there a bunch of people who after his death in fact testified to having seen the risen Christ. Number 3, I forget if he puts the number 2 in there. I think number 3 was Paul had a religious experience. Now that's not in dispute. It was that's not in dispute at all. It was epilepsy, Craig. Yeah, epileptic fit, Caesar. Okay, baby, but it's not in dispute that he had a religious experience that he thought was Christ. And that from there, he was completely transformed. The other thing is, I think these people thought they saw the Christ, and then their lives were transformed. And I forget, maybe the rest of them, maybe they went to their grave as martyrs. I forget some of those facts are probably under dispute. You talk to someone like Richard Carrier, and I'm pretty sure that they don't believe that Jesus was even crucified. So how much of Pinecreek, I'm not entirely certain which of those facts he actually thinks are established facts, so let's just stick to the even more minimal facts. Okay, the most minimal facts I'm almost positive every atheist listening to me will go are facts, is that the actual Paul, had some sort of religious experience riding a horse that transformed him into a really, really committed Christian. The key is the transformation. Now, this is something I talk about all the time on my YouTube channel, and this is actually the key to Christianity. I went to church one day and I had an experience. That's not in dispute. That experience for me was personally deeply transformational. Now, theoretically at least, there is a transformational power available to the practicing Christian. And how you can break it down into those who deconvert and those who stay in the fold, or at least one way you can break it down, is if you are in the church and you find your personal relationship transformational, you're going to stay in. If you're in the church and you find that there is no actual transformational power available to you through prayer or otherwise, you're going to eventually start looking around. I'm just saying, this ain't working for me. Why? Because God doesn't exist. You're going to start looking around. Start getting a little restless. Well, you sure it's 6,000 years old? You sure about that? You're going to start skepticing. Now, all well and good. So I'm somewhat skeptical of the value of starting with the resurrection, and these are the facts of the resurrection, and there's no other conclusion that you can come to, or the strongest possible conclusion you can come to is that Jesus rose from the dead. Now, I sincerely doubt that almost any atheist is going to agree that those facts make you think resurrection or bust. It's it. It's got to be resurrection. I sincerely doubt that that's going to work. Now, having said that, my limited criticism of his methodology, take that with a grain of salt. He's a far better known apologist than I am. Okay? He sold a lot more books than I have, like a lot more books. How many books have you sold, Craig? Not very many. Literally zero. So he's doing much better than I am. He's a much more renowned apologist, and he's sold a lot more books. But ask yourself a question. When he makes videos, how many songs does he sing? Probably not very many. So I got him in that area. But other than that, he is the far more renowned and appreciated apologist than your humble little apologist on this channel. So take my criticism with a grain of salt. I'm somewhat skeptical that an atheist is going to be convinced by being presented any of the facts of the resurrection and then conclude, Jesus must have rose from the dead. Nathan was doing a little stream on it, I guess, later. He went, I'm not exactly sure what he was doing. He asked a question on a earlier channel or something, but he had a theory that he was floating around about the resurrection. I forget exactly what he calls it, but it was something like, it was really pretty plausible. Okay, someone on his channel, I guess it was Felipe Leon, was positing a theory that these people were waiting for a savior that they thought was going to take over the world and bring the kingdom of God, and all of a sudden dies on the cross. Everyone was traumatized by this fact, so they start basically seeing things, and one person not seeing things, but in their trauma, they imagine they see him, and then that imagination turns into a sort of, not mass psychosis, but it has a life of its own. That's a fairly plausible explanation. It really is. I don't see how you're ever going to get a skeptic to decide for resurrection against something like that, a naturalistic. I don't see it. Now, if you really want to understand those, see, the problem with taking the resurrection, starting there, is that's the centerpiece miracle of Christianity. Most of your skeptics don't believe in miracles at all. So you're trying to get somebody to believe something that is by definition miraculous, by definition impossible. Not implausible, impossible. Somebody once tried to argue that it's implausible. No, it ain't. No, it ain't. Now, if you take a look around you and you see that there are north of 1 billion Christians in the world, let's go back. Okay, so Pinecreek wasn't being all that Pinecreeky, but there are a couple of exceptions. First of all, one of the things, Pinecreek, if you're still listening, I doubt you are, but if you are, you start the whole thing off with don't qualify your answers, and just give brief answers, don't qualify your answers. An apologist is on your channel to present his argument in the best possible light, to try to prep him ahead of time so he more easily falls to your arguments is really kind of ludicrous. That's where the prickliness came from him. And those of you who are too quick to condemn him for being defensive, I notice this because it's a fact, okay? That's why I noticed it. None of you are ever on Christian channels where they are asking you and pressing you with challenging questions. Why? It doesn't happen. Happens all the time on the other end, never happens on the atheist end. I have atheists on my channels all the time, but I never ask them challenging questions, try to press them, trying to get them to see the error of their ways. How can you think something came from nothing? Everything that begins to exist has a cause. Clam, answer me that. I never do riddle me that. I never do any of that stuff. Why? Because I'm there to have an honest conversation. Now, Doug, as of this hearing, that is still not his agenda. His agenda is very Pinecreeky, and he's sort of upfront about it, but not that really. A better way to be upfront about it, put my cards on the table. I'm going to try to present the strongest possible argument from my side, and I really just want you to answer quickly so you fall in line with my agenda. I mean, that's ludicrous. That's really what you're saying, Doug. Don't qualify your answers. Why? Because I don't want you to sound, I just want you to look bad. I just want you to look wrong. I think you're wrong. I presuppose that you're completely wrong, and there's no way that those facts point to a resurrection. So you just please answer quickly so I can demonstrate it to my audience. That's exactly what's going on still, and that's ludicrous. Ludicrous. Far more honest is your approach to, for example, politics. and I don't think it's a mysterious coincidence. It doesn't go over very well with your audience. But Pinecreek, this is a little interesting new coda to the Pinecreek saga, is that apparently he's a little bit of a conservative. Probably he's not deeply conservative, he's like center-right. And when he starts talking politics, it comes from a really honest place, actually. Now, getting back to a resurrection, okay? There are two centerpieces to Christianity that are slightly hard to believe if you are not a committed Christian. Now, again, plausibility, guys, and this is a really important fact. Plausibility is entailed by how easy it is for a whole bunch of people to believe. So the fact that a resurrection of Jesus Christ ain't all that hard for more than 1 billion people to believe means that there's a lot more plausibility to it than you are actually giving it credit for. By definition. Promise. Why? Because plausibility is entailed, by definition, by how easy it is for people to believe. Well, they're all just deluded idiots, Craig, the religious tart. Don't work like that. There's 1 billion of them. And as of this hearing, still relatively few atheists, which means Christianity, even with its two centerpiece miracles, a resurrection of virgin birth, why, that's ludicrous, isn't all that hard for people to believe. Now, that's a really important detail if you actually want to understand religion, not just debunk a resurrection. Do you actually want to understand anything about religion at all? And if you're a Pinecreek audience, most of you don't. Most of you don't care what's true. You don't care why people actually believe things. You don't care anything about anything. You just want to score points against Christianity. That's it. And sometimes that's all Pinecreek wants to do. It's far more honest in his approach to politics. And think about your approach to politics, Doug. Why are you slightly conservative? Because some of the things that conservatives say correspond in a really deep and meaningful way to deep intuitions in your heart. So you have things that you believed over time that you've become convinced of that have nothing to do with the core argument. And then somebody starts talking something and it matches that. So you start going, hey, wait a minute, I think I agree a little bit more with the right side on this. It's the same way religion works. Deep-seated moral intuitions, deep-seated, have almost nothing to do with, so the fact that he's, the reason why I don't think the resurrection as an argument is all that good is because there are way more important things going on in people's religious convictions. And the plausibility or implausibility of a resurrection is something that has arrived at a totally different way than just here are some facts and it's got to be a resurrection. Doesn't work like that. Now, the centerpiece argument that Doug likes to break out is his flying man. So, take a look. The flying man, for example, Doug, is nowhere near as good as you think it is. Now, to Habermas's credit, okay, he says the minimal facts are really strong. He has put the minimal facts into a book, and he argues the minimal facts as a standalone entity in different videos. Why is that important? Because if Doug's flying man argument were so strong and powerful and convincing, he would be doing the exact same thing. Habermas is allowing people who don't agree with him to gather up ammunition, to find the weakest links in his argument, to go, this is where it's probably not true, and this is where it's, so that when he is in a situation, people can come with the strongest possible objections. And the argument's still relatively strong. I mean, I don't necessarily think that the facts of the resurrection are going to bring anybody to belief in Christ. I really don't. I think the difference really is there transformational power that you have found available to you as a practicing Christian? If there is, and there certainly is in my case, to the manifold 1,000th degree, you're going to stay a Christian. You aren't going to deconstruct. If there isn't, you're going to start deconstructing. Period. Why? Because you can start looking around for other things. Christianity demands sacrifices of you. It demands that you behave certain ways. If you do not have any payoff, any transformational power, anything that it's giving you, peace of mind, anything, with me, strong peace of mind is a payoff. You're not going to want to sacrifice. It's just basic logic, basic human nature. So the resurrection itself, how plausible is it to a non-believer? Not plausible at all. But here's the problem with the flying man argument. First of all, it's not properly analogous. Think of it this way. You're a 23-year-old Craig Reed, wakes up as an agnostic when he's 23 years old, and he hears about a flying man. I get it. Here's some facts about a flying man, and if you found out these facts, you wouldn't believe that this miraculous deed happened. I get it. There's a lot more going on with religion. A lot more. It's a lot more complicated than that. That's why I pointed to politics. Deep-seated moral intuitions are the bread and butter of religion, and they're deep-seated. They have nothing to do with the facts on the surface. Almost nothing to do with it. It's a fact. Do you guys want to understand this, or you just keep wanting to play stupid games where you debunk this part of Christianity, find false to this part of Christianity? Because ultimately that tactic is stupid, pointless. We get it. You don't believe in the resurrection. Okay, it's not the only thing going on in Christianity. And there's some aspects of Christianity that not only, if you gave me a fair hearing, could I convince you of, but I could demonstrate quite clearly that are really and honest to God true. And yeah, I could qualify it true for me, but really true. Really deeply true. That's why I keep saying science is on my side. There's no getting around this, guys. Christianity ain't wildly implausible. That's atheist propaganda gobbledygook. If it were wildly implausible, there'd be 100 million Christians, and they're north of 1 billion. And you got two centerpiece miracles that are relatively hard to believe for naturalists, but for every other type of person, they don't seem all that much of a stretch. So you got to ask yourself a real and honest question. Why is that? Do you care about the real answers? Or you just want to play stupid games and score fake points? That's a real question. Because if you want to play stupid games and score fake points, the day is coming where you will no longer be able to do that, I promise. I point 1,000 times a video now to the Answers from Reason crew, the honest atheists, the real atheology crew. Okay? Now, Pinecreek was not being all that bad. I'm not saying this to Pinecreek. Just, ranting and raving in my videos as I tend to do once I get rolling. I get on a roll and I start going. You're rolling, Craig, roll with it. Okay. So, people have accused Pinecreek, Trent Horn, a day later. The reason why what's-his-face was bristling, was so prickly, is because that is a difficult situation to put yourself in. To then be told when you are in that situation, don't qualify your answers, just roll over and play dead so I can score points against you, is borderline ludicrous. When you are doing it right, Pinecreek, you'll know. Why? Because your audience isn't going to like it. That's when you're doing something right. That's when you're really getting somewhere. That's when you're using real critical thinking and getting at the truth. How do you know? Because your audience starts to get on you. When your audience is applauding like seals, you're doing something wrong. You're making it too easy on yourself all the time. That's my critique of you round the boards. And no, this wasn't all that Pinecreek. Wasn't that bad in this. It was relatively fair. You just asked questions. But you still wanted to just lead him to your foregone conclusions. So you could debunk him much easier. Hey, please don't qualify your answers. Why? Because I just want to smash you. I just want to smash you. Okay. Okay. It's dumb. It's a dumb idea. Why anybody would participate in it is ludicrous, actually. Why? Because it's all you're trying to do. Again, Trent Horn said, if you want to debate him, debate him. You should start debating people. Then you will see that you aren't quite as strong in your beliefs as you think you are. And demonstrated by the fact that you need to go, every time you are engaged with Christians, you take the power and you ask the questions. Put yourself in the position where you're playing the inquired against rather than always the inquisitor. The inquisitor is the power position, dude. Anytime you take the power position, I promise you, you aren't that confident. Why? Because it's the only reason you grab a power position. There's something in you that deeply doubts. Promise. Why? Because you wouldn't set it up so that you set these things up ahead of time so that you're going to win, you're going to score your points. You wouldn't do that if you were sure. The Answers from Reason crew don't do that at all. Why? They don't have to. They're 100% honest, and they honestly don't believe in God. There's nothing I can do. I play act about destroying them all the time. There's no way I can ever destroy them. Why? Because they're 100% honest. Real atheology, same deal. The reason why other atheists don't like them is because they actually challenge other atheists to think critically. They actually do it. They don't just talk about it, they actually do it. They're 100% honest. There's no way I could ever defeat them. Why? Because they are coming from 100% honesty. How can I defeat them? I can't. I make fun of destroying Joe all the time. There's no way I can destroy Joe. Why? Because he's being as honest as humanly possible. Ditto for Dave Rollins. As honest as humanly possible. Now, real atheology versus you. You should start learning from them, Doug. Why? Because they're honest. All the time. All the time honest. No ifs, ands, or buts. Never anything but honest. Now, Trent Horn, I didn't watch a video on Trent Horn. It's probably a lot more Pinecreeky, I can tell by the title. This wasn't that bad. This was pretty fair, but you kind of expect a Christian to roll over and play dead for you. That's idiotic. And it's not going to work. It's not going to work all that much longer. You know, your audience should have been challenging you to stop doing it a long time ago, but your audience aren't critical thinkers. They're freaking stupid seals. They're idiots. Pack of sycophant. I was about to really go off there. Pack of idiots, promise. But you're not critical thinkers at all, guys. You're imbeciles. You're a pack of idiots. You don't even know these arguments. You don't even know what people are talking about half the time. You don't. At least Doug does his homework. At least Doug does know what the minimal facts are, and he does know some of the. He's got a pretty good grasp of the scriptures too. He can quote the scriptures probably better than I can. So at least he's doing his homework on that end. But he's not challenging himself to be a critical thinker. It's not that hard. Answers from Reason Crew do it every single time they go to bat. Never a dishonest moment. Real atheology. The Trent Horn is challenging you to a debate. You should take that debate. You should take that debate and see. Let someone get in your face and see how confident you are, because you aren't as confident as you think you are. I promise. You wouldn't set everything up this way if you were. Nobody who's like the people who I thought were the most confident in their atheist position prior to the Answers from Reason Crew was Drew, the genetically modified skeptic. Why do I think that? Because he wasn't defensive at all. He didn't set things up so that he'd win. He just puts out his videos and tells you what he thinks about stuff. It's pretty straightforward. Now, as far as, yeah, I'm ranting. You're ranting a lot, Craig. You sound like a crazy man. All right, fine. I'll try to tone it down. No, Pinecreek was overall, he was okay. For Pinecreek, it was fairly Pinecreeky. But almost a huge chunk of Christians accuse you, still to this day, Pinecreek. When you are doing it right, no Christian will ever accuse you of being dishonest or not fair or corrupt. Watch Ben Watkins. Trent Horn has accused you yesterday on Twitter of not being an honest actor, of not being faithful, of not being worth him coming on your show and engaging. Why? Because he knows you're just going to run plays on him. It's not stupid. He's seen you do it. That's what you usually do. Just run plays. You did it a little bit better with Gary Habermas, but you're still doing it. An honest person doesn't do it at all. Nobody. And if I'm wrong about this, I've never seen it. Nobody, no Christian anywhere under the sun has ever accused Ben Watkins of being unfair. I've never seen it happen. Ever. Ditto for the Answers from Reason Crew. No Christian has ever accused them of being unfair. The people who get on their case are other atheists. That means they're doing it right, because they are challenging people to actually use critical thinking instead of talk about critical thinking all the time falsely. They're doing it right. When you are upsetting your own audience, there's a good chance you're doing it right. Part of the reason my videos probably aren't wildly popular is I had atheists on my channel and I was just giving them a hearing, just trying to listen to their story, just trying to understand them. A lot of Christians probably don't like that. Why? Because they want to do it wrong. They want to debunk, dismiss, discredit the atheists. It's not the right way to do it. The right way to do it is, here's this guy, seems like a bright guy, Drew. Let's hear his story in depth. What made him become an atheist? Why does he not believe in God? And you learn actually a lot about atheism and religion when you do that. The problem with your methodology is still the same. It's not investigative at all. You're a pre-supper. You already know what you're looking for. You already got your preloaded answers. You're just trying to lead people to your foregone conclusions. Still, eventually you're going to wake up and go, wow, this is the wrong way to do it. Yeah, it's the wrong way to do it. It's the wrong way to do it. How you'll know you're doing it right is when your audience gets mad at you. When your atheists are there to, hear you score fake points and you don't give them that. You challenge them. That's why they don't like it when you get Republican or conservative. Why? Because you're actually challenging them to think. Let's take a different look at Trump. Maybe he's not a sexist, racist, misogynist. Maybe he is, Craig. Maybe he is. I don't know. It's inconclusive. He's a crazy man. Tweets crazy stuff at 3 in the morning. All right, inconclusive. Bad example. Bad example. Okay, Glenn. Who's the Florida dude? Ron DeSantis. Okay, probably a better example, but they'll find a way to slander him too. When your audience is in your face and doesn't like what you're doing, just general rule of critical thinking, people don't like to do it. Atheists are no exception to that. You guys are no better at it than anybody else. Matter of fact, you're worse. Why? Because you're always pimping it out as you're great critical thinkers and you never use it. Great critical thinkers turn that skill on themselves. That's how you become wise. That's how you become an actual, intelligent, wise human being. Critical thinking is not something you dismantle other people with. Why? That's easy to do. I could have Carlo Rovelli on my channel, the greatest physicist alive today. And because he's in the seat and I'm got all the power and all the cards and ask all the questions, I could make him look like an idiot. And my audience would be fooled into thinking he's wrong and he's an idiot. Why? Because it's easy to do. Gary Habermas was no exception. But to give Pinecreek credit, it's not really what he was trying to do. He was trying to do his centerpiece objection, which I guess is his flying man. You want your flying man to see if it actually flies, put it out as a standalone video, because then Christians can dismantle it and say it's not properly analogous. Yeah, some of the objections are going to be inane. Yeah, okay, fine. So a lot of the objections are going to be stupid and inane. I agree with that. But some of the objections are going to be meaningful and make sense. And if there's an actual core, powerful argument there, why I don't think there is I'd be perfectly willing to grant what it's trying to prove right from the jump. You would not believe this miracle in any other context but your religion. Well, yeah, duh, okay, I accept that. That's why I don't think it's all that great of an argument. Because the thing it's trying to make sure everybody understands is something that I would readily admit to right from the start. You would not believe a miracle in almost any other context except your personal religion. The only thing I was trying to point out is that the quote-unquote centerpiece miracle of Christianity is a lot less implausible than you think. Once upon a time, I woke up as a 23-year-old Craig Reed, and I found out, using the flying man analogy, that every 40% of the people I knew believed the man flew over the Grand Canyon. That makes it, by definition, less implausible. Why? Plausibility is entailed by how easy it is for something to be believed. That makes it, by definition, less implausible. 40%, again, say it again, 40% of the people I knew, even as an agnostic, believed that that flying man flew over the Grand Canyon. That makes it a lot less implausible by definition. Why? Plausibility is entailed, once again, by how easy it is for something to be believed. If a lot of people believed it, it can't be all that implausible. By definition. There's got to be some other reason then why people believe it. Exactly. Now you're starting to honestly investigate. You see what I'm saying? Do you get where I'm going with this? It's not just debunk and prove it wrong. You can't do that. The Christian can't prove it right. That's why I don't think his argument's that great. The Christian can't prove it right. The facts are never going to amount to a miracle definitely occurred. Never. First of all, the facts happened a long time ago and most of them are up for dispute. I don't think his minimal facts are without dispute. I'm pretty sure there's some that atheists dispute. I'd have to talk to Apologia. But somewhere, somehow, there's a place where Apologia, Laura Robinson, and let's say Michael Heiser all agree these are the historical facts that we're dealing with. Even from there, I only need those. That's all I need. I don't need anything else. I don't care if the Exodus happened or not. Don't care. Never have. Exodus is happening. Okay, good. What happened when I prayed last week? That's my Christianity. That's what it's predicated on. What happened when I pray? That's what my Christianity is predicated on. 100% of the time. And yeah, it's guided by the word. Calm down. He's not told you he's not listening to the word. Some Christians somewhere had a cow over that. Promise. Christians are like that. They're annoying. They're annoying too. And so far they haven't gotten in my face yet. So your flying man is not as powerful of a slam dunk as you think. The thing that is purporting to prove, I would readily admit. No, nobody would believe a miracle like a resurrection outside of the context of a religion. Nobody, or almost nobody. Which means the reason why it is so eminently plausible, and it is in fact really plausible, why? Once again, for the fourth time, plausibility is entailed definitionally by how easy it is for people to believe something. If a billion people think it could have happened, then it's by definition really pretty plausible. So you've got to ask yourself a really important question if you care what's true. And let's be perfectly crystal clear, honest, most of your audience don't. That's why you should be challenging them at this point. Why? Because they don't care what's true. And I'm going out on a limb and thinking you still kind of do. I honestly am crediting you with more integrity than you've demonstrated. I still think deep down inside, little Dougie Pinecreeky Doug does care what's true. That's why the conservative thing interested me. Why? Because it's honest. It's an honest opinion from deep-seated moral intuitions that are real to you. That's exactly where religion comes from if you want to understand it. Deep-seated moral intuitions buried in your heart that are real to you. And so help me God if you guys are paying attention. That is actual wisdom. You can't learn that anywhere else on YouTube. That is really important. And if you don't recognize why, you're a dumbass. It's really, really, truly important. That's where religion is born from. Deep-seated moral intuitions that have been coming at you your entire life. And you've had people on your channel that have told you that, and you've gone into freaking stupid plays. The guy, not Laura Robinson, you did it with her. You did it with Laura Robinson's husband. Going into plays with those guys was completely not okay. Completely not okay. Why? Because they came at you with honesty. They're not on board with all this crap about Christianity. They're on board with the things they actually believe. You should have asked them honest questions. But the other guy, who's one of them, I forget what his name is, he told you that. He believes Christianity because it corresponds to deep-seated moral intuition. Told you that word for word. And you went, oh, see, he doesn't believe it. I don't know, you pulled a Pinecreek. Back then you were bad. You've gotten a lot better, I'll give you that. Gotten a lot better. A lot more honest now than you were back then. A lot more. 2 years ago, no. Your channel was headed for the dumpster. Would have not stayed in business. Now it's got some hope. There's some integrity there. You're doing some things correctly. But it's time to do better. It's time to get better. Go higher. It's not just about how many fake points you can score. Got to stop that. Why? Because it's not about that. If ultimately you are seeking truth, Paul G, you know I'm telling the truth. If you're listening, I know you know this is the truth. It's not just about debunking Christianity. That's child's play. That's stupid stuff. It's about if this is really plausible to a lot of people, why? Why? And I gave you a really good hint because it corresponds to deep-seated moral intuitions that are never going to be reached by any counter-apologetic under the sun. Why? Because they aren't available to it. Something deep going on inside of the human being. It's a lot more interesting. Okay, I'm right. You're ranting a lot, Craig. I understand. But I really think that video is valuable, so I will post it as is. If you like it, great. If you don't like it, they're the cat videos, go watch them. I think that rant was I think it was gold myself. That's why I allow myself to rant like that. Why? Because I get somewhere. Get somewhere when I do it. So, there you have it, kids. That's my little rant on Pinecreek and Habermas. Pinecreek wasn't that bad. It was pretty C. It was pretty B-, C+ Pinecreeky. So, there you have it, kids. That is all for now. Mass is ended. Go in peace. Amen.